later. Okay, from Parthia to Jerusalem, part of the road series, Matthew 2, 1 through 12. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet, and you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, go and search diligently for the child. And when you have found him, bring me word that I too may come and worship him. After listening to the king, they went on their way, and behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they fell down and worshiped him. Then, opening their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way. So every year, we review the events surrounding the arrival of Jesus in the world. The significance of this time is magnified by the realization that his very birth was heralded by the stars in distant lands, causing wise men or magi to travel great distances to see this new king. Today, we live in a world of turmoil, and the weather is wreaking havoc on us, bringing unprecedented rain in some areas and unbelievable drought and heat in others. Sickness and disease come at us from insects carrying Zika and dengue to our neighbors and friends potentially sharing COVID-19. And fear leads to social unrest, protests, political upheavals, and more. Our world is not that peaceful paradise we imagine in Eden. But then the world has never been totally peaceful. So my first thought is imagine living in a world where every trip required you to walk.
Oh, Lord.
If you had money, you might be able to ride a donkey, or if you were wealthy, perhaps a horse and chariot. In this case, they're crossing the desert, so they do have camels with them. But it appears that the people are walking and the camels are carrying their stuff.
Yeah.
If you were a merchant, you could travel with a caravan, which might provide some safety on the road. But at the same time, traveling in a group like that might invite highwaymen and robbers' attention. If you can imagine, at the nations west of you, we're being gradually consumed by a mighty nation with endless armies. So if you look toward California and thought, there are these armies coming into that place, taking over, and they're from someplace else, maybe Nevada or Oregon or somewhere, and they've come in and armies are everywhere, but there's a star over there and I need to go that direction. That's kind of the position the Magi were in. It's like, we have to go over there, but we know there are armies there.
Yeah.
And in that atmosphere, it would be safe to assume that you would travel not alone, but with your own contingent of guards.
Yeah.
So their journey had no clear destination because they were following a star. It's all good and well that we know that sailors and travelers are able to look up and follow the stars. But if you haven't been there before, you really don't know where that star will take you.
That's right.
So there they were, looking up and thinking, okay, we're going to go that way. It's an evening star. We're going west. And, they really didn't know how far they were going. They had no clear time limits. They couldn't know where the star would lead or when it would get them to the place they needed to get to. I think Herod had to go ask his advisors where the Christ child was to be born, because his advisors had the Jewish scriptures. The Magi weren't Jewish, though. All they had was a star and the prophetic word that had come to their people, which was that a king will be born and you'll follow the star. So they didn't know they were following it to Bethlehem. They just knew they were following the star. So the other thing is they had no planned end time. They couldn't be sure when they would return home. So you can imagine they get out there, they're journeying with this huge caravan. And, the question that we have to ask ourselves is, how far will we go? Because, in hindsight, we have more information about the trip they took than they have. The journey from Parthia to Jerusalem is about 500 miles. Yeah. I can imagine walking a mile. I can even imagine walking 3 miles. I've done that. But 500 miles. In fact, I don't even know how many miles. I walked from high school, which was a magnet school, not my neighborhood high school. So I walked through downtown Detroit and then crossed to the east side of Detroit for the first Earth Day. So I know I could walk a long way, but that was one afternoon's walk.
Yep.
I left school probably about 2:30, and I got home probably about 5:30, around in there. They walked longer than that. This caravan with no major detours or disruptions would have probably taken them 50 to 60 days. Maybe a little less, but we're not really sure. And as you can see, they're walking through a desert. And, we always have to guess. We celebrate Jesus' birth in December, but they weren't there in December when he was born. And we're not sure he was really born in December anyway. He might have been born in April. So if you think about them seeing the star in December, let me see, I have a temperature chart that I didn't put on the screen, but if they left their place in December and walked for 50 to 60 days, then they started at 56 degrees and it averaged, the highs averaged around 65 by the time they got there, maybe 75, depending on how long it really took them. But the night times would have been more like 39 to about 46. So that's assuming that they left home in December. If, on the other hand, he was born in April, then the night times were about 50 and the daytimes ranged from 65 going 2 months up to about 83 degrees in the desert. 83, 83 with no shade in the sun, walking next to your camel.
Not really.
Not the best thing to think about. So,
well, and I think too that look, picture traveling in the desert anyway, whether you're following a star or not, would be confusing because there's no real landmarks to. You can't say, let's go to that mountain because if it blew and stormed, that mountain may be there.
yeah. And can you imagine if they only traveled in the daytime, then they had to kind of pinpoint that star before it got too bright to see it, because then the sun came up.
Yeah, that's true.
So anyway, once they got to Jerusalem, it would have taken probably a couple more hours to get to Bethlehem, but of course they had to stop and talk to Herod. So, when we think about how far will we go, we have to think about what barriers we might experience in today's world seeking our Savior. You know, um, would we recognize the signs leading to a humble birth, or would we discount those signs as unimportant phenomena? And in terms of our spiritual life now, what are the signs that we are seeing and following right now? And are we seeing those signs, or are we missing them because they don't seem big enough or important enough?
Yeah, yeah. I think that I think like we've all talking about for a long time. I think our world is not together, not united. Even our church is not united.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one big problem because everybody's doing their own thing, and he's saying, "Hey, let's get together and let's do this, or let's, you know," and so it's just chaos kind of.
Yeah. And it's like, we're not really on the same path. It's like, how far will we go on our spiritual journey to enter the kingdom wholly? And for some of us, it's
Yeah,
like, yeah, I'm going this far. And for others, it's like, I'm going all the way. And there's all of these gaps. And it's like, I'm going to go with this part of the rules, but ignore that part. And it just gets
yeah.
kind of jumbled.
Pick and
So,
choose.
yes. So after I figured that we were going this long way, it's really a process. Then I thought, well, what will we take on our journey? Uh,
Oh, there you go.
so, and some of these things I'm reading are from a website. Quora is a website you can ask questions and people give answers. So
Yeah.
they talk about the arrival in Jerusalem being extremely provocative politically. So what you have to think about is, you remember that I said that you're looking west and California is all full of soldiers and everything, and they're from somewhere else. And Herod has been approved to be the king in this region as long as he follows Caesar's rules. And here comes somebody that says, we came to see the new king. That's politically provocative. It's like, whoa, what do you mean? What do you mean the new king? You came to see who? And you're going to do what? And wait a minute, how did this king come about? Where is this king? So, when they got there,
Yeah.
um, they also arrived with, like I said, their guards, their soldiers, or the people they brought along with their caravan to protect them. So not only did they show up talking about a new king, they showed up with a little mini army of their own. And it's like, whoa, dude, who do you think you are coming into Jerusalem with your soldiers talking about some king being born?
Yeah.
So, their arrival was not necessarily welcome. Parthia and Rome had before that fought a war over control over Judea, and Rome won. So here we go. It's like, wait a minute, not only are you coming in here with your soldiers looking for a king, but you're the people who lost the war. You shouldn't be in this place because Rome won.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure they thought of it as a mini invasion.
Yeah. And for Herod, he would have worried that their arrival was going to get him in trouble because, like I said, he was allowed to rule by Rome. So, it's like a new Parthian invasion might be near, and that would not be the best of things for Herod, since Rome was supporting his rule. So now, their journey would have required them to carry knives. You can see there's a knife down there and next to the little yellow thing. It's the only way I can put it.
A
So,
lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on here. I'm sure they had their sandals, but they probably also had something that wrapped up their feet a little bit better for the sand. So you see their boots on this picture. There are all sorts of things on this picture. Um,
Yep.
their journey would have required them to carry knives, maybe swords. They may have brought their guards to defend the caravan from robbers along the way. Because they carried rich gifts, they would have had to hide those in the deeper places of their packs. So you remember back here on the camel picture, they had these big packs. So on the outside, you might have some grain to feed the camels and maybe some extra water for the people. And underneath you'd have some hidden away gifts because they were bringing gifts to the king.
Yep.
When we journey, it's imperative that we also protect the treasures that we have. In order to do this, though, we have to know what we treasure and why.
Yep. True.
So in John 10, 9 through 11, it says, I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. I am the good shepherd. Good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. So, I have a question. What are some of the things that you treasure? And I was just in general.
You mean just anything? Is this a trick question? No.
It's not a trick question. Actually, I have a lot of normal things because people treasure their houses and their cars. Some people treasure their titles and their prestige. So, I know people who always introduce themselves as doctor. I rarely introduce myself as doctor. I tell people call me a Daryl. Some people treasure their ideologies, the things they believe. We're rugged individualists. That's really important to some people. So whatever the ideology is they grew up with that their family buys into. People treasure their partners and their children, and people treasure their chosen family and their close friends because those are people. The Girl Scouts taught us make new friends, keep the old. One is silver and the other is gold.
Yes.
So those friendships are kind of important.
I think partners and friendships, I think that's a big one from, I don't know what we'd do if we didn't have any friends. It would be a very law existence as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I went yesterday to coffee up here, and I'm getting to know mostly the guys because the guys are always together. Yeah, and occasionally I get to know some of the gals. So one of the gals I've been out to dinner with before came. Oh, Dot, yes, somebody I know. And then there were two new gals in town. But it was nice to just spend some time with people, and that's it. Those are our treasures, our friends, and whether they're really close friends or just new friends, they're still a treasure to us. And so the question when we think about treasures, how do you guard your treasures from thieves and vandals?
Well, not physical thieves and bandits, Billy. Treasuring your relationships. You need to give and take. It's a take situation. It's not just you're my friend because you're rich, or you're my friend because you can take me around in your car, or whatever. It's comes from your heart.
Yeah.
So I guess people could steal some of that, steal your joy or whatever, but I think that's important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's important that we guard those relationships and that we give into them as well as receive from them so that they're cared for.
Right.
And it's my last question, what have we been taught we should treasure? And I have the answer for that one. Matthew 6:19-20 says, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. So, we need to treasure those things that are deep in the heart, because that's where heaven is. The kingdom of heaven is here. So those are the things that we really have to treasure and hold on to.
Yep, I agree. I was going to say treasure up in heaven. Yes.
So now, yeah, so it's kind of blurry, actually. I tried to get a good picture. But anyway, the question then is, will you give your richest gifts to the king who gave everything for you? And the Quora talks about the Magi probably being concerned that Herod's soldiers might follow them to figure out the location of Jesus. And so that it's possible that they took an alternate longer route to get to Bethlehem. It may have taken them more than a couple of hours. But the goal of the Magi was to pay homage to the infant Jesus. So just after the time of an extremely rare star sign in the sky, which only they were aware of, they got there, according to Quora, maybe they got there around March 2nd. Of course, we go further down the page in Quora, they'll get there maybe around June 21st. Quora couldn't make up their minds. But anyway, what they did was they brought gold, which is on the left of your screen, frankincense, which is up front, and myrrh, which is in the box in the back. And I don't know if you've seen this stuff. Everybody's seen gold, of course. It was really an intriguing thing to me when I was married to my husband. He actually brought frankincense home, which was a round clump. It was like they made a little pancake out of it, and you scrape the center of it and lit it in the center, and it just slowly incensed your house. And
really?
Yeah, and
it's strong.
Yes, it's very strong. It's an acquired taste. It's very strong. It's not a sweet smell. But
No.
and the other thing that he brought home was myrrh. It was gum myrrh, and they call it gum myrrh because it helps to fight gum disease. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, really. So you use it in small quantities and you do not swallow it. So you could rub it on your gums, nasty as it was, and then you just rinse really good and spit. But
Interesting.
yeah, so totally nothing to do with the lesson, except that it was pretty exciting to me because I was a churchgoer all the time and he wasn't, but he brought home frankincense and myrrh.
Well,
So,
it's like everything else. Read about it, and you think you know about it, but you really don't, because I've never seen frankincense or myrrh, so I just assumed they were some kind of smelly somethings. But
yeah, and I don't know if you'd burn the myrrh. What this says, my research told me, was they brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Gold is a symbol of kingship on earth. And, we recognize that because kings always have gold on their crown and gold jewels and chains and gold on their embroidery and everything. So there's always gold when it's royalty. Frankincense, it's specifically an incense. This is just broken up. If you could imagine it squashed down flat in that circle thing, that's kind of what he brought home, a little cake of frankincense. And that is a symbol of deity, which is godliness. And then the myrrh that they would have brought, instead of being like the gum myrrh, which I had, which was powdery, it was an embalming oil, and as it's a symbol of death. So when you think about that, Jesus came as a king on earth, king above all kings. So he had that human royalty, and he also came as the Son of God. So he had that deity, the godness in him, the Christ spirit. And then he had to die in order for us to live. So then everything was incorporated in those three gifts they brought. Um, and so when I think about the treasures we talked about before, um, those were symbols of our humanity, you know. So our gold, our houses and cars and titles and prestige, our ideology, and even our partners and children, that's part of our humanity. Those align with the gold, as that's an earthly gift. So that's one of the treasures we're protecting. But at the same time, what would be our frankincense gift today? What would be our deity gift?
Um, Giving God our hearts, I guess.
Okay, so there you go. Prayer, meditation, yielded spirits. That would be our frankincense gift. And how might we offer myrrh today? So I think of myrrh for us is not so much that we're going out and dying, but more that we're submitting ourselves to God. So it's not about me, it's about God.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's kind of how I came to our treasures for this.
That's a cool idea. I never thought about before.
I didn't either until I was writing this lesson. I said, oh, this is exciting. So section 4, which may very well be the last section, is when will you engage with the king? The Magi arrived where Joseph and Mary and the infant were staying. And it says here they arrived around the time of the summer solstice. So now we're up to June. Remember I told you before it said March? So maybe they left home in March and they arrived in June, in which case the temperatures are now more like 100 instead of 80 something that they finished walking across the desert. And so the reason this says summer solstice is because when the sun or the star was directly overhead. So, you know, um, and says Jesus was likely born, according to Quora, in late February or early March. So he would have been around 3 or 4 months old when they arrived. That's what this one article says. But we don't really know the exact time, and neither does Quora.
Yeah, that's right. That's okay. It's their best guess.
Yeah, and you know I actually pulled this from several different Quora articles. So this one says we don't know the exact time. It would appear he was already a young child by the time they got to him. And they based this on the fact that Herod had all the male children 2 years and younger killed.
Yeah.
So they're figuring the Magi may have seen the star and then had to gather their belongings and their caravan stuff and decide what they were taking with them, say goodbye to their families, pack everything up, get on the road. And you know, so it could have been anywhere from 2 months to a year later before they got there. Um, One of these points out that the Magi couldn't have gotten there too soon because when a child is born in Israel, they bring an offering to the temple, and um, the offering, I forget what the offering is supposed to be. I don't think I put that down. But in Mary's case, the offering was 2 sparrows. It should have been like a dove and a lamb, and there's like 2 different types of offerings. But because they had no money, 2 sparrows were acceptable. And so that implies that they weren't there right after he was born, or she would have given a bigger offering to the temple. And then some of the scholars think that they arrived in December a year after Jesus' birth. So like maybe he was born in December and they took till the next December to get there. Yeah. Then in that case, he would have been anywhere between 14, 16 months old. And that would explain why Herod picked this age group to kill anybody below the age of 2, because he wasn't sure which child it was.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't that funny how it's, you read the Bible and grow up in Sunday school and everything, and you think this all happened within this, like a week or 2 weeks or something like that.
I know. Sounds
never,
like it all happened right together.
yeah, you never think about that there's some kind of timeline there.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you're buying your Christmas stuff, they will happily sell you a nativity with shepherds and wise men. It's all part of the set.
It's
But they weren't there at the same time. It in fact says that Herod asked the wise men when the star appeared, and then he had all the boys under 2 killed. And it also says in Matthew, where we read before, that they came to the house and saw Jesus. And if you remember, he was not born in a house, he was born in a stable. So some time had passed.
That's funny.
Yep.
It's just
So
weird how we,
our questions then, well, one was, when did the Magi arrive? No one knows for sure. And then how many Magi were there? Do you have any idea?
well, they just say 3, but there had to have been more than 3.
Yeah, I'm thinking that whole caravan, there could have been quite a few Magi. And folklore says 3, but the Bible never says exactly. It doesn't specify.
Yeah.
So, so when do we come to the Lord? And it's an interesting question because, I came to the Lord when I was 7. But I know people who didn't even know the Lord until they were adults. And then there are other people who just resist until they're on their deathbed, and then they come to the Lord. So, you never know. You never know when. But for us, the question is, when will we kneel before the King with our gifts? We have to each individually make that decision. When will we kneel with our gifts and bring our gifts to the Lord?
I think it depends on everybody's background. Because for me, I knew all the stories when I was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
and all the things we've been talking about. But I never really thought of like giving your heart to God or
Mm-hmm.
sit down and ask Him in your heart, any of that until I was. Well, actually, it didn't come until I was actually a cousin. So then it made sense. The whole business made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was just one of those things. Yes, I need to live for Him. I need to do what I need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that third gift, that submission. And that goes with this slide. Lord, I will bow to you, to no other God but you alone. That's the submission piece of the gift. So we give him all of our earthly belongings, and we give him our prayer and our meditation and our hearts. And then we give him all that we are by bowing and submitting to him. So the road from Parthia to Jerusalem and then on to Bethlehem is fraught with danger and distractions. The thief tries to steal our treasure. The highwaymen try to stop us with violence. We're distracted by those who would waylay us, like King Herod, while they do away with our king. And we must avoid procrastination that would delay our arrival. So it's our task to navigate the road with care and determination. This is the way we enter our service to the King of Kings.
Amen.
Amen.
Cool.
And next time, as you can see on the screen, is the road to Emmaus.
Yes, ma'am. I see that.
Yeah. I I think these lessons vary in length based on how many people are in on the discussion. So we have short lessons, but we get all the points.
That's right. That's right. It doesn't matter if even one person shows up. We're here. Well, actually, there's two of us because she's sitting over there listening.
Yeah. I know Judy listens in. She doesn't ask him questions, but she's listening.
Yeah, she listened in for good.
All right, let me stop the recording.